Hey, good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Jason?
I'm doing fantastic. It's so nice to see you, to be with you on this lovely. I'm looking at the date. It's Friday afternoon, April 23rd, and I was telling Mike this before we kicked off that this is one of those really fun episodes where we have never met, we've never looked at each other, we've never spoken, and here we're going to do it live, not live. Well, we're going to do it live on a podcast and then publish this out in a month or so. So, Mike, I'm really glad you're with me today. I'm really excited to get to know you and have a fun conversation.
No, I'm really looking forward to it. Really, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Let's get into it, my friend. So introduce yourself, Mike, who you are, where you are in the world, and just a little bit about yourself to kick us off.
Sure. So my name is Mike Shoreman. I live in Toronto, Canada. I spend a lot of my time in the US. A little bit of background, who I am now. I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm an athlete. I'm a advocate for several nonprofit organizations, and at the core, I'm an entrepreneur. So several years ago, I was a professional paddleboarder. For those of you who aren't listening, that's basically surfing with a paddle. And yes,
Yeah.
people do it for a living.
Yeah. Well, Mike, can I ask you about this? Because I love paddleboarding, but when you say professional, are you racing? Is it like what are you actually competing on?
So there are races.
Yeah.
There's a world championships. There's one in Hungary this summer. It's in the Pan Am Games. It's being decided this year if it's going to be in the next Summer Olympics, not the one that's supposed to be taking place this summer, but the following one. And there's a worldwide tour.
I had no idea.
It's a booming sport. Like it's crazy. Like all the big sponsors, like Red Bull and
Sure.
all those. So it's very competitive. And I took a lesson and I fell in love with it. And I, carried it as a hobby for a long time. And then I decided I wanted to turn it into a profession. So I became a certified coach with the governing body of the sport. And I started teaching. And I built up this life of teaching people and building their confidence. And a lot of people would show up for lessons and they'd be all freaked out. I don't know, people get all freaked out about falling in the water, but it's the best part,
Right?
It's the most fun.
And it doesn't hurt. Yeah.
No. But it's great because I got to see people's confidence build throughout the sessions. Like they'd get up there and they'd be all wobbly, and you have your most balance when you keep your paddle in the water. And at the end of my lessons, like at the end of the evening, I'd be in front of the Toronto skyline and the sunset's going down and planes are landing on top of everybody, and I'd put them like in a row, and I'd say paddles up, like I'd command them like an army commander.
Yeah.
And they'd lift their paddles up in the air. And it was a moment where they could really kind of celebrate themselves and their stuff. So it's really cool. And then I got to send them home like really great, amazing pictures.
That's super cool.
But the problem with paddleboarding up north, as where you are, is that you can only do it for so long because it's not California, it's not Miami. So I went out to California to set up a business partnership and in Laguna Beach. And the idea was to run retreats down the Colorado River, and it would see me there in my off season. And I was really excited and really, just pumped and stoked. And then I came back and I was, on top of the world, and then everything just came crashing down.
Yeah.
And I got really sick really fast, and it was all over.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk quite a bit about this because your journey is quite the amazing story. And the thing that you're taking on soon is also, if I'm not mistaken, it's never been done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll get into that later. So this is called the cliffhanger for those who aren't listening. I created a cliffhanger here. There's something that Mike is going to be taking on, and we'll, in the middle of the episode, we're actually going to get into all this. So Mike, the question I want to ask you to start, and I want to caveat this for you, is what's something that you nerd out about? And I'm just going to take stand-up paddleboarding off the table because that is just way too easy. So what's something else that you nerd out about?
What else do I nerd out about? I'm really into, so this is kind of really embarrassing to say, but I actually love British television.
Okay.
Like I love the design element of it. I love the production value. I also love British humor.
Me too. I love British humor.
It's so good. Like
so
the British version of The Office. So good.
So good. Yeah. Hard to understand for me, but really, but dry British humor is my favorite. It's so good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What's your favorite British show?
So I love the comedies, but I'm watching one right now. It's called The Secret She Keeps, and it's with the actress Laura Carmichael. She played Edith in Downton Abbey. And it's a drama. It's pretty dark, but I like the dark ones. They do dark really, really well.
They really do. Did you ever see Broadchurch?
Yes.
That was so dark. And I'm like, God, it's a depressing story.
Yeah.
But really, I mean, Academy Award winner Olivia Colman before she won an Academy Award. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
they do the dramas really, really well.
Yeah. The writing, I think the writing is also really good. There's also just a sensibility about British acting, which is why a lot of, in my opinion, why a lot of phenomenal British actors and actresses end up playing very American roles, which just always blows my mind. Like, I never even knew Christian Bale was British until I saw him on some show, and I'm like, wait, that he's Bruce Wayne, and he's played all these the person he played in.
That's also something I nerd out about. I'm a huge Batman nut.
Me too. Yes.
Yeah. So when I went to Chicago, I'm going to say about 8 years ago, and I went on, I don't know if it was Memorial Day, but it was a holiday weekend, and they had the G8 summit and the UN in the same weekend. So they had tanks. They Obama was staying in the hotel that I was staying in. Yeah. And you had to go through so much security. Yeah. But so Chicago is where it was filmed.
That's fake. That's the fake Gotham City. Yeah.
Yeah, the fake Gotham City. So I was already very excited about, seeing things that I recognized. Yeah. But then because of all the security, there were tanks everywhere. And it looked like Batman could have been in the city at that time. It was
super cool. Well, last question here before we move on. Robert Pattinson, what do you think?
As Batman?
Yeah, he's the new Bruce. He's the new Batman. He's the new Batman. I understand. For the new Bruce Wayne.
I think that nobody is going to be as good as Christian Bale.
Yep.
And Michael Keaton. I like Michael Keaton quite a bit too. Mm-hmm. But I think he will do a good job.
Nice.
Yeah.
There we go. All right, Mike. Next question is about your comfort zone. And so I want to first take a look at something that is going to be inside of Mike's comfort zone that's going to be outside of somebody else's. In other words, what's something that you enjoy, you like doing, that's fun for you, that other people are like, yeah, no, that's not my thing. What's that thing for you?
So I think getting up in front of a room and holding presence and speaking to them and connecting with people and speaking about a topic that, is valuable and leads them to do something. I think that is something that comes very naturally, where a lot of people don't like public speaking,
right?
And a lot, that's people's it's people's number one biggest fear is public speaking.
Right.
And for me, it kind of fell into my lap, and it almost comes as second nature now. So that is that's my comfort zone.
What about so public speaking, do you prefer improvisational speech or prepared speech?
Prepared speech.
Prepared speech. So I'm the opposite.
Okay.
I much prefer to do improvisational stuff. I do some improv work, and I like prepared speaking, but my disconnect is I hate writing, which means, so I would much prefer, so for me, and I don't know what it's like for you, I would much prefer to participate on a panel and sit and just be able to make stuff up, as opposed to stand up and give an hour speech. Not that I couldn't, but I actually prefer to be not prepared. So you prefer to be more prepared, to have your content and rehearsed and those sort of things. Yeah.
I want slides. I want, everything. I want my tone. I want it paced out, and I want it. A lot of prep goes into it whenever I'm speaking. On very few occasions, I have been asked to, wing it. Mm-hmm. I'm winging it today here with you.
There you go. Yes. Like for example, right now.
But I do think that I am more confident when I go into it prepared.
Sure. Yeah. All right. So I'm kind of leading you into this, but I'm actually going to take this off the table too, because it'll be too easy. Flip side of this question. What's something that's outside of your comfort zone that's going to be inside of somebody else's? And I'm going to take improvisational speaking off the table because it's just too easy.
Okay. Outside of my comfort zone. So one of the things that makes me really uncomfortable is flying. I love to go places.
Interesting.
I travel extensively. I've been to India, all over Europe, all over the United States, but I'm terrified of getting on planes.
Really? Are you terrified the entire time?
Yeah, the second the door closes, I'm making sure I know exactly where the exits are. I'm counting the amount of people. How many people do I have to get past in case something happens? It's just crazy thoughts come into my head. If this is going down, what is my game plan?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think most people would be very surprised with the amount of flying that I do. It's completely. It doesn't come easy for me at all.
Yeah. And it's something that, is it getting better over time?
Well, yeah, because now I can have scotch, so it makes it a lot easier.
Right.
You can go to the lounge before you get on.
So if anybody listening ever sees Mike, he might be lit by the time he gets on the plane.
Yeah. I'm that guy who's doing breathing exercises, shooting back scotch and patting my knees up and down to calm myself.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. You're making me think about, I don't even think about it. I'm just like, I'm getting on the plane, and maybe it's because I'm very fatalistic. I'm just like, I don't know, if something happens, I have no control over it. So that's so interesting. And I'm thinking about my wife used to work in the airline industry, and now she sells to the airline industry. She's been, she before COVID was doing like over 100,000 miles a year, and she still gets scared. She still gets like clammy palms, and especially on the landing is the thing that gets her. And she knows it's not necessarily rational, statistically very improbable, but same thing. Yeah. It's just for me, when I hear something like that, it's like the human psyche of not being able to control something. And so it's like, it's so interesting. So yes, you and my wife would make really interesting travel buddies.
Amazing. Thing that I've actually, the last couple times that I was in Miami in November and I was in Mexico, just as COVID was taking off. But coincidentally, the evening before on TV was May Day, which is all about planes and disasters. And I don't know why, but it was on, and why am I watching these things?
Yeah.
Turn it off.
It's like people that like are scared to death of sharks and then watch Shark Week. I'm like, that does not sound like a good idea.
No.
It's like a horror movie. Well, thanks for sharing that, Mike. So if if we ever run into each other in the real world on a plane, I will be sure and buy you a scotch. I'll say send that guy a scotch. That's awesome. So you mentioned this earlier. You are a professional speaker. So, I'll put everything in the show notes. You have a great website. You are a professional speaker. This is one of the things you do. So if I was to give you 5 minutes and you got to deliver, I call this your like 5-minute TED Talk, and the whole world got to see this TED Talk. So everybody got to hear what Mike had to say. What is it that you would speak about? And what would be your call to action for us at the end of that speech?
Right. So TED Talks are really interesting because, they're everywhere, and some areas are more popular than others.
Yeah.
A big one, and something that I speak on that I know the subject matter very well, because of what I went through, is how to choose the right mentor.
That's a good one.
There are so many different, and mentorship is a huge part of TED Talks. Like, I think there's probably, maybe 50 of them, but how to choose the right one for you. So in my journey, in my experience, when I was going through everything that I was going through, which I'll talk a little bit more about, I researched and found somebody else who had gone through what I was experiencing. I literally Googled famous people, my condition, and because I was determined just to put a face so that I didn't feel so alone.
Sure.
Yeah. And I found, a bunch of politicians who didn't interest me. I thought boring. Yeah. And I found the founder of P90X, Tony Horton.
Wow.
And he got very sick, just like I did, and it actually put him in a wheelchair about a year earlier than me.
Wow. No idea.
So, I thought, okay, Tony Horton, P90X, millions of people around the world. I'm the most vulnerable I've ever been. My face is collapsed. I can't walk, all this stuff. But I'm gonna contact him and just see if he writes to me. And he wrote back to me.
I'm not surprised. Yeah.
I crafted this email and I wrote him and I said, I'm a big fan and I see this has happened to you. And over time, we, developed this relationship, this friendship. And, he became this kind of mentor, and he motivated me and inspired me to go and do things that at the time I didn't believe in myself enough. But he believed in me, and I believed enough in his belief that it led me to do it. So I would talk about mentorship and what it can do when you choose the right one, and how to choose them.
Yeah. Very cool, Mike. We're going to take a brief commercial break right now. And this is a great time for a commercial break because we've like hinted at your story and we've hinted at it a few times, and it's quite fascinating. I've read your website, I've read your biography. So once we come back, we're going to start to get into that and really like learn more about what we're kind of hinting at, that the audience probably is like, what is this? So
what is going on?
What's going on? So we'll be right back after this, Mike. Thanks. All right, Mike, we're back. I think we left the audience in suspense for long enough. What do you think?
I think it's time.
I think it's time. So, Mike, what do you want the audience to know about you?
I want the audience to know that I'm an author, I'm a speaker, I'm an athlete, I'm an advocate for several nonprofit organizations. I've got a new book out, upside down there. Crash and Rise.
Cool artwork, by the way. Whoever designed your covers, I love the graphics and the coloring.
Thanks. So it's symbolic because of the blue and the white, which is water, and then the sky. the sun. So Diaries of the Unbalanced Paddleboarder Crash and Rise. It's out at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, and Amazon. And it's a bit biographical, bit self-help. I'm a little bit bossy, but it's fun. It's
A little bit.
it's
Right.
yeah, it's designed as a beach read.
It looks like a beach book. Like the colors itself look like something you'd see on a beach. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just a lot of fun.
Nice.
And I hope it's meant for people who are struggling right now. And hopefully it leads to a lot of people, who are going through a crash of their own, and hopefully leads to them rising.
Yeah. So would you be willing to share what happened to you?
Yeah.
And would you also be willing to share what it's actually driven you to take on here in the near future? Because I think that all of this is going to be really interesting it's interesting for me personally, and I think really interesting for the audience.
Yeah. So like I said, I built this life up as a paddleboarding coach, and I built this business, and then I came home and I got very sick very quick. So what happened was I developed a sudden neurological condition called Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. So what it is it's a reactivation of your chickenpox virus, which actually stays in the body dormant.
But this is also what shingles is, isn't it?
Yeah. So essentially it's shingles. But shingles, when it attacks either your eye or your ear, it's classified as Ramsay-Hunt syndrome.
Got it.
And over a period of 5 days, I went from being this fit, athletic, fun guy who had a business and everything was going, to not being able to walk from like the living room to the kitchen of my parents' home, who now had to look after me.
Wow.
I lost my business. I lost my identity, my social life. It was all gone. My face collapsed. Like I look, very handsome now. I'm just kidding.
He's Mike's gorgeous. For those who are just listening, gorgeous. Yes, I can attest to that.
But it was like, you can, like, I've shared the journey on social media. I put up the pictures. And it's shocking what it looked like. It affected my facial nerve and my vestibular system. So vertigo and dizziness is a huge part of this. So when I turn my head from side to side, I get very dizzy.
Even right now.
Even now.
Wow.
And the doctor said, what do you do for work? And I said, I'm a paddleboarder.
I'm a stand-up paddleboarder. I balance for a living.
And they said, oh boy. And there was a lot of anger and there was a lot of rage, because I went to a walk-in and 3 separate emergency rooms at different hospitals over a period of 5 days.
Yeah.
And what happened was, it's a thing called anchoring, when a doctor forms a medical conclusion too early in the pre-diagnosis process. And then it's in your chart, and then you go somewhere else and they see it in the chart. So people didn't run tests until it was at the point where they said, you've missed the 72-hour window for treatment. So I was told, we're going to send you to balance testing centers. We're going to send you for an MRI to rule out brain damage. We're going to send you to all this stuff. And we'll just kind of hope for the best. And it was a really tough, hard thing. And it became, I think, a lot of people who are diagnosed with, different things, they don't realize in the initial days what a toll it's going to take on your emotional and mental health.
Yeah.
And what that's going to look like. So it got very dark. And I was questioning, I went into this all happened in November 2019, 2018. And I went into Christmas thinking this might be the last Christmas. It was just so bleak. And,
Yeah.
speech, I had significant speech problems, hearing, vision impairments. And yeah, it just was a totally, I went from that to becoming the unbalanced paddleboarder.
Yeah. Well, I want to ask you something about this, Mike. Is this, I've never heard of it before. Is it rare? Is it quite rare?
It is quite rare. So I'm part of it. One of the things that I did was I sought out a community of other people who shared this, and I did it on Facebook. I found a support group, and it has a couple thousand people from all around the world. Like
it's not a lot. Yeah,
it's not a lot. But it has affected, some notable people, some politicians, but I think a lot of people saw the pictures initially and thought that I'd had a stroke.
Well, it sounds like the face is like the same. It's the same result, right? You lose the control in your face muscles.
Yeah. No, like I sought out one of the big things aside from vestibular rehab therapy to retrain my brain how to walk again. I looked up top surgeons in the country who would take nerves from my leg, and so it would be like Face Off the movie. So they'd like cut into my ear and go down in my jaw, and then open it up, and then take the nerves and put them into my 5th, 7th, and 8th cranial nerve, and then close up my face.
Wow.
And then heal, and then that would like heal over a year, and it would go to like 90%. And I was determined for so long to have this surgery that by the time the 2-year waiting period, because they want to see natural regrowth.
Sure. Yeah.
By the time that it had happened, so many good things had happened in my life that I just decided to live with a face that looks a little bit different.
Yeah. Well, it's actually really funny though, but I don't know if you've heard this before. It doesn't look different to me. Like I don't, it doesn't. I don't know if you've heard that from other people.
Yeah, it's pretty symmetrical now. Like I can tell, like when I smile, I can still see it, and also I actually can't close the one eye complete.
Okay.
But other than that, it has repaired, way more than we ever hoped it would.
Yeah. Yeah. And so are you still on the mend? Like, is there still more work to be done with a doctor, or is this kind of, you are where you are at this point?
So I think we are where I think I plateaued with balance, with my walking, with what I do. They said, you're never going to, you're never going to be on a paddleboard again. You're never going to fly on planes again. You're never going to do long car trips again. And I've done all of it.
I was going to say, we just met each other about 40 minutes ago, but I can already get the sense that your response to that was, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, my response was, "Get off my lawn."
Yeah, hold my beer. I think this is a perfect segue, Mike, to talk a little bit now about what this has inspired and what you're doing now, which is like, it's pretty freaking cool based on what you just shared.
Thanks. So I think it has to start with, I sought mental health treatment. Like I went into a facility, I went all Boy Interrupted, Winona Ryder, like in there, and it gave me the confidence that I'd lost. I remember when my dad dropped me off, and he left, and feel like, oh God, like I've got to go in and do this really big thing. And I did it. And I came out of there and I realized that I could do hard, tough things. And 4 weeks later, I was put in a position where I was around paddleboards, and I got on a paddleboard for the first time. And it made me sick. It made me nauseous. But I felt like I was at home, and I lasted 3 minutes just sitting down. And that led me to feeling confident enough that I could do it again for another 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes, and then a couple months later to 9 minutes. And then I was invited to participate in what's known as North America's largest inspirational speaking competition, to give a speech the theme was courage. And I gave a speech called I Said Yes, Paddles Up. And that's I was competing against TED Talk speakers and, people who do this for a living. And I'd never really done a talk before. And I won, which was great.
Nice. Yeah.
So, there were 300 people and I was hoping to lift up a few. So that was awesome. And then people started sharing it. So the Power of Positivity put it up to their 15 million subscribers. Ashton Kutcher put it out. Jay Shetty put it out. It went huge, and it gained millions of views.
Yeah.
And it opened the doors to opportunity that were lost on me before, when everything fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, because of the virality of it, it triggered a movement of people, paddleboarders all around the world, lifting their paddles up in the air and taking pictures of themselves from their locations for mental health, which has culminated in me becoming this year's International Stand-Up Paddleboarding Man of the Year.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, and how many people could be the International Paddleboarder of the Year?
I think I was nominated. I would think I was up against. I'd never been nominated for it before. This was my first time, and I was up against all the world championship, all the world champions, all the Pan Am Games winners, and they chose me. So pretty cool. My friend Chris Burbish, he won in 2017, and he made the New York Times when he paddleboarded from Morocco to Antigua. And I won because I got on a board for 3 minutes. So it's completely different, but pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I've become very involved with mental health advocacy, and it's led to this summer. So this summer, I will become the first person with a disability to paddleboard and cross from one country to another and cross international waters. So I will be paddleboarding from New York to Toronto, raising
New York City.
money. From Rochester, New York.
Right. From Rochester. Right. Yep.
So it's about, I believe it's 93 miles. It would take most professionals, I think, about a day and a half. I think it's going to take me about 2.5, 3. And most of it's going to be in the dark, and most of it's going to be sat down. But I hope it raises a lot of awareness and funds for the mental health programs and services and the organization that I'm doing this for, because they've been hit really hard with the pandemic. So
wow, Mike, that's amazing. So
it's amazing when I'm out there hating my life 26 hours in. I'll tell you that much right now.
Are you going to have support with you of some type?
Yeah. So I'm going to have 2 support boats. Right now I'm talking with Red Bull to be on one of the boats to document it.
Yeah.
And the Toronto Marine Police Unit is going to be coming out to get us, to bring us in safely because of boat traffic.
Yeah,
about 15 kilometers offshore. So yeah. Wow.
We'll talk about this at the end, but I want to just put this in right here because I like to ask questions on my podcast that I'm curious about, because I just trust that people are going to be curious. How can we follow this? Because this is something that, how can we, we'll talk again, how can people find you? But right now, how can we keep up with your progress? How can we see when you're doing this? Like, how do we follow this?
So I think the best thing to do, the one I'm most active on is the gram. I love Instagram.
Right.
So I'm Mike Shoreman at the Unbalanced Paddleboarder.
Got it.
But I'm also on I've got a Facebook page. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm, my website's mikeshoreman.org.
Yep.
And August will be go time, but Instagram is my big one.
The gram. So what Mike's saying is slide into the old DMs. Wish him luck. Yeah. Nice. And by the way, for those listening, I'll put all that into the show notes too. So, just all the URLs, all the social links and everything, but usually I wait till the end, but I'm like, I'll bet you people want to know more about this right now. So that's why I asked you. Very cool, Mike. I am looking forward to following you. I will definitely check this out. That is, I don't know if I had somebody on my show a couple months ago. His name is Raymond Bryn, and he is, he's rowing from New York to Ireland with 2 other guys in a rowboat. And the reason I asked about the support is they have no support.
Amazing.
And they're doing it for charity as well. It's called The Hard Way Home. So the reason I mentioned that is I wanted to ask if we could take a minute to talk about, what you're raising money for, like specifically.
Yeah, so I work with Jack.org, which is a mental health organization that trains youth. So they have programs and services all across the country, and they go in. They've got Jack.org. They've got Jack Talk speakers who go into schools and communities and train to empower youth with mental health. And youth is the future. So and it all begins with youth. So I'm very excited to be supporting an organization that is going to be supporting the future of the country.
Nice.
And I'm working right now setting up plans, because I am starting from the US. I'm setting up plans right now to so that this can, become bigger and help mental health programs, in other countries as well.
Very cool. First question, do you have a goal for fundraising?
Yeah, I want to hit $1 million.
$1 million. Perfect. That's a leading question. How can people contribute if they'd like to do that?
They'll just follow the I believe the website. I'll give you the website.
We'll put that in the show notes too.
I think it's jack.org/the crossing. We've called it the crossing because
so you have your own landing page on they got you that's specific for what you're doing. Awesome.
But it'll be on all of my social medias and stuff
Great.
Like that.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing all that, Mike. I'm glad you're here with us today. And I'm glad it's you doing the 93-mile stand-up paddleboarding trip and not me. That does not sound... I love stand-up paddleboarding, but not for 93 miles. Sounds like a lot.
I love stand-up paddleboarding. I'm not sure if I love it for 93 miles.
They do have food and water. Are you going to have like a dry bag or something attached to the board? Is that how that'll work?
Yeah. So there will be food and drink, no scotch, but there will be... There will definitely be sustenance out there for me.
Yeah, and I guess because it's just you're not going to be able to sleep because you're going to be cruising across. Like you're going to have to keep going. You can't stop. Like so I'm hoping you get a good night's rest and a good cup of coffee the morning of or whatever you're taking off.
Because it is 3 days, like I'm not doing this to kill myself.
Right.
Like if I do need to anchor, like there will be a bathroom on the boat. If I have to stop and go to the bathroom, I'll go to the bathroom. If I need to, when I get, I get dizzy when my head turns. So being on water that goes up and down, like this is going to be really hard, like tough work.
Yeah, it sounds.
The goal is, if it gets too much and I have to lay down and I have an app on the board out there, I do it and I just anchor it to work groups and I just lay down and I have an app for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing it. Like I'm not setting like I have to do this in 30 hours. Yeah. I'll finish when I finish. The point is that I finish.
You're going to finish it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And part of the reason I ask is I'm just, again, relating it back to what Ray's doing. It's him and two other dudes in a rowboat across the Atlantic. They can't stop. They're done.
Right.
So like they're going to rotate every 2 hours for 65 days. And I'm like, you are crazy. But but so it's, I'm always fascinated by these things. Like I'm a bit of a risk taker, but not this kind of thing.
So you should tell them to look up my friend Chris, who did that big Atlantic paddle. He's actually doing, he's going from California to Hawaii this summer on a wing. He's using a wing on a surfboard. And his stand-up paddleboard actually have like a container where he would go in and sleep in the evening. And, and he has talked about hearing the sharks underneath it, like bash into, like, maybe actually don't tell them about this.
You're like, yeah, you should tell that's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Yeah. Well, thanks, Mike. That's really great. Well, best of luck to you in August. Well, I will definitely be following you, and audience listening, please follow Mike, check out his pages, and you can count it a contribution late on Friday for my wife and myself to this. Really cool, really inspirational, Mike.
Thank you.
So now, not a question. Well, actually, this is a question. I always put this in the middle of my show because I was told that people want it. So if they don't, too bad. What's a question you have for me that I can answer for you and for the audience that you're wondering about?
What can I ask two?
No, it's one. Yes, of course. Yes.
What is your favorite part about doing a podcast?
That's really simple. Meeting amazing people.
Okay.
Having conversations just like this. Like I said at the beginning, I have people that I've interviewed that I know quite well. I'm going to have my wife on soon, like person I know better than anybody. And then I have people like you that we've never even spent 1 minute together. And it's like you and I are sitting at a bar having a scotch right now, and I'm learning about these things, but I'm going to record that conversation and doing it. So the best part is definitely getting the chance and opportunity to meet people such as yourself and a lot of my other guests that I just wouldn't have an opportunity to do that, because if I like, hey, Mike, I'm Jason, you want to have a conversation? You're like, well, what do you want to have a conversation for? You probably would say no, not because you're not a nice guy, but because like what we're just going to, and we wouldn't get connected because we're here. So that's the best part about it for me, for sure. And then also equally as cool as having interesting conversations for me is having people learn about my guests. So this is a good example again of like, there will be people listening to this who listen to the show because of me, and then they're going to learn about you. And yes, there's going to be people listening to the show that care about you and don't care about me and don't have any idea who I am, but just being able to broaden my guest reach, because almost all my guests are up to really cool stuff in the world that I think is impactful, makes a difference, whether it be charitable work, whether it be raising money, whether the kind of professions that they do. So that's the best part.
Nice. Awesome.
What's number 2?
Oh, have you ever had one that goes really, really wrong?
It's a good question. And I've had, so today I released my, you're terrible. I'm terrible. I have not been great sometimes. But so I released my 72nd episode today, and I'm just thinking, and I've got some episodes that are recorded. So I think this will be about my 82nd or 83rd recording. And the honest answer is not really. I've had a couple of guests who are very attached to their agenda, if you know what I mean. Like they're very scripted. They know what they want to talk about. And if like, you can see that my structure is a little bit different than like, hey, Mike, tell us about how you're going to do it. Like it's my whole premise of the show is it's a little bit, Mike is an interesting person, whether he's paddleboarding 93 miles or whether like, what does he like to read and watch? Right. So that's my premise. And sometimes people are the feedback I almost always get is like, oh, that was really fun. And it's a little bit different. And it's because like, I try to model this after Doc Shepard, Mark Maron's more like, hey, come on and we're going to have a conversation. Yeah, there's only one guest I've had that like just was really resistant to it. And you can sense it on the episode. I didn't release it because it's not fun. Okay. Not fun. So, but only one out of like 83. And I told that person, I'm like, hey, like, I'd love to have you on. I think we're going to have an agreement on what it is. And it's just not your time to just like promote yourself and it almost felt like they were reading from a script.
Okay.
And you can see my style is I like to ask curiosity questions and get to know things. And it felt like somebody who was not the least bit improvisational. And you've actually, you're quite improvisational. I'm asking you questions you had no idea. And you're like, yeah, let's go with it. So, but for the most part, yeah, it's been spectacular. I'm a big fan. One of the other things that I think maybe opens it up a little bit more for me, and I'll just offer this to the audience and like a behind the scenes thing. And I'm actually curious for you. You do a lot of podcasts. I'm curious what you think of this. I take the Larry King school of interviewing approach here. And I don't know if you know what I mean by that, but my understanding is Larry King would not do much research on his guests. Like he would, like, I know a little bit about what you do. I looked for a couple minutes at your website, but I'm not somebody who's going to spend like an hour researching Mike and having like all these things that are specific to you, which actually for me frees me up from having assessments and judgments and things. And it actually allows me to be more curious. And I think that approach for this show specifically helps it to go well, because I'm genuinely asking curiosity questions versus like, well, I read your bio and it says you did this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
So I think like that's the way I approach the show. And I know there's other podcasters, they do a ton of research on their guests.
So I've done, when I was paddleboarding, I kind of moved up the ranks very fast. Like there were like 10 paddleboarding companies, and I think I became number one within a year. And that was because I went after the media. So I became the safety expert with the National Water Safety Boating Commission. So I don't know if you do, but in Canada, we have Victoria Day when you have Memorial Day, and it signals the beginning of boating season.
Totally.
So all the media would come out for that organization to do demonstrations for the public on how to keep safe. And I said, you guys need a paddleboarder, and it's going to be me. So I got myself in front of the camera, and it got me a lot of exposure, and it helped my business tremendously. It also made me have to become comfortable with interviews very fast.
I bet.
I've done, I'm gonna somewhere between 50 and 100 TV, news, radio, print, podcasts.
Yeah.
But I do always like what I've learned is, interviewers always like that lean in moment where, they're like, oh wow, like this is something great. Like this is something we're going to take and run with.
Yeah.
Your interview process is awesome, Jason.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yeah. I try to not go for the soundbite, it's like, and I'm very fortunate. Again, like every single one of my episodes are released, I think highly of every single person on there. And I'm not looking for like, what's the soundbite that we can replicate? It's more like, hey, like, Mike, who are you? That's at the end of the day, that's kind of my question. Well, thank you. Those are both thoughtful questions, and I've never had either of those asked to me. I've had a lot of different questions asked, but never, especially the second part. But so thank you for that. So Mike, I'm going to take the reins back, the virtual microphone reins back. And I'm going to ask you, what is it that you're passionate about?
I think I'm passionate most about, and it's kind of married to each other, people and experiences. And it all goes back to what I wanted to build as a paddleboarder. I wanted to build something like an experience that people would never forget. And I've carried, that never died. Like the business died, like it crashed and burned. But as, I've rebuilt myself as a speaker, as an author, as this, when I wrote the book, I wanted people to experience something, and I wanted to leave them with that. When I speak at a business or a school or an organization, I want them to connect with it, to learn, and to grow. And people, just connecting with people and building and nurturing relationships, is something that I'm very passionate about.
I'm not surprised by that answer. You'd mentioned places you speak at. So what's I'm sure people listening is, hey, I'd love to have Mike come in. Like what kind of venue, not venues like the actual venue, although, maybe it's the venue too, but what kind of audience really fires you? Like what kind of audiences get you really excited to come speak to?
So it varies, whether it's like a tech company or whether it's a college. They're both great. I recently spoke at an International Women's Day event. It was in London, in England. But there were 6 speakers, and I was headlining with the corporate affairs manager for Google. Nice. And this year's first Time Magazine Kid of the Year, Jitanjali Rao. And she's amazing. She's like 12. Like she's just like a firecracker. Like it's nuts. And so whether I'm really looking, like I do a lot of virtual stuff right now. I'm really looking forward to getting my job and getting everything, back to some more normalcy, and doing more live events, hopefully at the end of this paddle. But no, like businesses, people, entrepreneurs. I love working with entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because you were an entrepreneur. I mean, you are an entrepreneur still. You're your own brand, and prior to that, you ran your own company. So you are an entrepreneur in multiple ways. Yeah,
no, I feel like when I'm around entrepreneurs, just magic happens. And even though I'm there, for a reason and speaking, I even if the focus is on what I'm delivering, I'm still learning from them, being around them. Just in, conversations, before and after and all of that. Yeah.
So Mike, my next question, usually I'm not exactly sure what the answer is. I have a sneaking suspicion what the answer is going to be for you, but you might surprise me. What's the thing that you're most proud of?
Oh, that's a good one. Have you seen Matthew McConaughey's Oscar speech?
Yes, from Dallas Buyers Club. Yeah.
Yeah. So he talked about, always reaching for a little bit more. And, I'll be, I'm proud of this achievement and I'm proud of this achievement. And it goes into the future. And then I think about, 30 years from now and 50 years from now. And I'm kind of like that. So I'm proud of, a lot of the things, but I think, so much more can and will be accomplished. But if I had to choose one, I think it would be just really simple, getting back on a board when they said that it couldn't be done. Just, you don't know me.
Yeah, I was going to be really shocked if it wasn't something along the lines of a bleak Christmas of 19 to what you're about to do, related to like, don't tell me what I can and can't do. So yeah, super inspiring. Nice. All right, Mike, got a few more questions for you. Just a couple questions for you. What's something you're afraid might actually be true about you?
What's something I'm afraid that might actually be true? Um, so I think, oh my gosh, that's a tough one. That's a really tough one.
This is probably the toughest question on the that I asked my guests. So this might have been the one I should send this to you.
Yeah. So I think something that I'm afraid of that might actually be true, that that we are it's limitless possibility. And that kind of scares me a little bit, like how far this can go and how far it's gone already.
Yeah.
And the stage has been kind of set with the last 2 years for what comes next.
Yeah.
And looking at the timeline of everything happened very fast, and everything's speeding up very quickly right now. And that's scary. That it is scary.
The pace, yeah.
So, but also, when stuff like that happens, I've had a lot of exposure. When you go viral and you're seen by millions of people, and you're on the TV networks and you're on podcasts and you're everywhere, you open yourself up for attack. And then luckily, the speech that I gave, I was wearing a bow tie. And the only bad thing that anybody said was, I hate that bow tie. And
that's not bad.
And that wasn't bad. But as this gets big, so I think I'm just very aware and very conscious of, we're all people at the end of the day, right?
Yep.
So you just, want to be held in good regard, and you just try to do your best.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, you set this question up perfectly. Are you still going bow tie after the feedback?
No.
You're done. No more bow ties for Mike.
No. So I was very strategic in what I wore for that talk. Mm-hmm. I was given pointers on what the viral partners like, Goldcast, Power Positivity, Ashton Cook, what they look for.
Yeah.
And it wasn't somebody who comes wearing a suit. So when I gave my speech, I wore, a white shirt with a suit jacket and a bow tie, and I wore a surfer's cap backwards.
Nice.
And I wore board shorts and flip flops.
Makes sense to me.
But I've kind of, I haven't thrown away the bow tie because of a bad comment or a couple bad comments. I think I've thrown away the bow tie because I've gone a different direction, and it served its purpose.
Right. So you're not actually a bow tie guy, because some people are actually bow tie people.
I'm all for bow tie people. I support them. I'm just not really one of them when it comes.
And I am certainly not a bow tie person either. But one of my guests from last month, Mark Pittman, he's a really great executive coach, author. He's written a few books. His brand is bow tie. If you see him anywhere, he's got a bow. It's just part of his brand, and it looks great on him. He's like he does a lot of work with nonprofits and stuff, and it just fits his brand. I think if I showed up in a bow tie, people would be like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? But I love the image of you, like board shorts, flip flops, and then like it's like a business, it's like a Zoom business mullet, party on, or business on top, party on the bottom. But you also had party on the top, business in the middle, party on the bottom. That's awesome. That's cool, Mike. All right, Mike, how do you see the world?
I see the world as, God, this year has been so different. So, the world's changed this year. I think at the core of it, I see the world through the eyes of a child. Very much so. I'm kind of like like I kind of look at it kind of like Disney probably before he built it. Like this is what can happen. This is what the world can be. It can be this. I think that the world, what I have seen, is very kind and compassionate. To with what I have seen personally. With what I've seen on the news this year and all of that, we have a lot to heal and to fix. But I think things are starting to shift, and it's going to take a long time, like generations, but we are on the way.
Nice, Mike. Usually this is the part of the show where I, ask how the audience can connect with you, but we already did that earlier. So just to reiterate for the audience listening, I will put all of Mike's info, slide into his DMs, check out the website. On the website, I know you can inquiry about speaking. You're gonna have, yep. And also I will make sure and put the link for the nonprofit that you're gonna be raising money for and all that good stuff. And so as we wrap up today, I have a tradition on the show where I ask my guests to leave us with some quick words of wisdom that would fit on a Post-it note or an Instagram post. So Mike, what do you got for us? Some quick words of wisdom.
So I think what I would say is, when you get knocked off, I think, in many ways, I'm known by audiences and the media as the unbalanced paddleboarder. But I think this year we all became unbalanced paddleboarders. We all went through it together. We all were knocked off our paddleboards. And the most important thing is to get back on your paddleboard and to finish your race.
Oh, man. I don't know if I have to ask you, Mike, because is that like in one of your speeches or did you just come up with that?
No, I throw that down sometimes.
Well, because I'm like, wow, that is good because it's so on brand and also just very inspirational. Well, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on today. It's been an absolute delight to get to know you, and I want to wish you the very best of luck in August. And keep doing what you're doing. I can't wait to follow you on social and see how it goes and contribute to the charity. And hope hope you get some Red Bull action and also, I would just encourage you, maybe think about taking that nap when you're out there. That sounds like a tiring little event. Yeah,
like they can lower some tapas down for me, and I can have a little picnic in the scene like a siesta.
You'll be like, hey, I'm a little hungry. I'll order the nachos and maybe some wings.
Yeah, a little cheese plate action.
little nice cheese plate. Well, Mike, thank you so much for being on today, and best of luck with everything you're doing.
Thanks so much, Jason.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Talking to Cool People with Jason Frizzell. If you enjoyed today's episode, please tell your friends. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, and give us a shout out, or take a moment to leave a review on iTunes. If something from today's episode piqued your interest and you'd like to connect, email us at podcast@jasonfrizzell.com. We love hearing from our listeners because you're cool people too.